Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 205 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 61 of A Storm of Swords, that's Sansa 5.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. Hopefully, we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, and indulge in a little pedantry. Oh, I skipped one. And cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I am doing all right. Molly just got home, so hopefully the thudding of her walking around upstairs doesn't get picked up too much here.
These mics are too good for that.
Yeah. Well, aside from the thudding of my daughter, I'm doing all right. It's a big week for the Rays.
Go on. I have nothing, so go on. Fill the time.
My youngest, my princess, started her senior year of high school this Monday, so that was momentous, I guess.
No, I don't agree. I think it's like, you could say next Monday, you could say it was her second Monday of her high school year. It's like graduating high school, sure. Starting high school, sure. Anything in between, nah.
Well, it just signifies one last go around in the traditional school sense. And, you take a picture every year on the first day of school.
I could believe that of you, to be honest. The everyday thing. Make a Flickr book of it.
Her high school year. And so, I found her first day of school picture from kindergarten and compared it to her first day of school picture this week. And, I'm a sentimental sap.
My God, you are. It's incredible. It's incredible. I don't know how you live with yourself. I mean, if I succumb to the sentimentality that you do, I'd never get out of bed. There's just so much. You just got to harden your heart to it.
I do. I guess I do. I don't know. I've always been beginnings and endings have always been tricky for me. But and then, Molly did this momentous thing here, first day of her senior year of high school, and then Ethan says, "Hold my beer," and today accepted an offer in Pennsylvania, a job offer in Pennsylvania.
Oh, so he's moving away. Moving away.
Yes, he was, 2.5 hours away. Now he's moving 8-9 hour drive away. So,
wow, he's swimming against the tide there as well.
Yes, I know, right?
The only person to move from North Carolina to Pennsylvania.
He's the exact opposite of what Stacy and I did.
Yeah.
So that's what's
exciting.
going on with us. A lot of big moments for our kids.
Congratulations. Well, apart from Molly, who just had her first day of high school, of senior year of high school, which is just. But
just
that is
another
awesome.
day. Just another day.
That's awesome for Ethan. I'm pleased for him. Is he excited? Is he looking forward to it?
He is about 90%. He's looking forward to the job. He's very excited about the job, and it's a nice salary that that he negotiated, and all that stuff is great. But there's two issues. One, he's moving that far away from his family, which is tough, I guess. Maybe not for everyone. You live slightly further away than that from your family. you get by.
It makes me wistful at times, but I can survive it.
And the other thing is his friends. He spent a year making really good friendships in his previous city, and now he's leaving them all behind.
Does he have extended family up there still, or is it mostly
he does?
Far away?
He does less and less every year due to various means, but there are still some up there. So there'll be that.
That's always handy. When I went to university, I was close to my grandmother, so
okay.
I didn't actually go and see her very many times, but I knew she was always there if I needed something.
Yes, it was comforting to know.
Exactly. Well, I've got very little for you. The only thing I've got is that you've been working with somebody on my team at work at our day jobs, and the person
Yes,
you've
I
been working
have.
with is on the surface a very nice person, but deep down she's extremely judgmental and catty.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
I would have never
And
guessed that.
exactly, I knew you wouldn't. So when she told me that you were, and I quote, a dream to work with, I I told your boss.
Oh, really?
I did.
Well, I
I immediately told
appreciate
your boss.
that.
No problem. Because
Thank you.
and I told him the same things that he doesn't know. That the person giving that praise is way less generous with the praise than you might expect. It
Wow.
the thing you're working on is the thing that trips everybody else up and just annoys her all the time because she's
Uh-huh.
always the one having to teach it, and you have done a good job of it apparently. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
mm,
good to know. Well, thank you for this information.
yeah,
And thank that person for
yeah,
saying nice things about me.
yeah. Oh, and in other news, I well, dental things. Here we go.
Okay, here we go. The
205
weekly
episodes. This is about the 20th time we've had dental things.
Yeah,
So
I
I've had
take a picture of Molly every day and you go to the dentist every day.
I have a toothache, so I went to the dentist, and it was a real catalog of problems at the dentist. Her her computer system had gone down, so she couldn't take an X-ray. So she was just
Oh.
looking at it, and she was like, "I don't really see anything." And she said she had me do that thing where you tamp down on a piece of like inky paper,
Oh. Okay. Yeah,
you know,
sure.
and basically you leave an ink imprint on your teeth, and it shows you where your bite is hitting.
Sure. I can imagine.
You get the idea. So she said, "Well, one thing I'm noticing is your bite is too hard on that side, the side where my toothache was." She said, "You're biting too hard on that side." She said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to just no big deal. I'm just going to grind down a couple of little top parts of your teeth, just so your bite isn't quite so hard." And I was
Okay.
like, "Okay." She said most of the grinding will be on a crown, so really not a problem, yeah. So she
Right.
went in there and she ground down little bits here and there. And then she ground what she calls tooth number three.
Huh.
And she caused me so much pain. I
Oh no.
cannot
Oh
describe it.
no.
She just touched that tooth with the drill, and I was like,
And
"Oh, why did
woo.
you do such a thing?" She so much so that she actually borrowed the X-ray machine from the dentist next door and actually got me X-ray. And I had two dentists looking at my
Oh
X-rays.
wow.
And then I ended up with the endodontist who does root canals, but
Right.
he couldn't find the same problem. He said I can't quite localize this problem, Simon, so you're gonna have to come back. He says it's one of two, three, or four, but they all seem to be have different problems.
Oh.
He said tooth
Okay.
two appears to be cracked. Tooth three is the one you came for, and I can't find anything wrong with that one. And tooth four, you don't appear to be able to bite down properly with it. I'm like,
So you came for one issue. They couldn't find anything with that, but they found other issues.
right.
Uh-huh.
But between the two visits, I bit into a pea, a green pea, and it hurt a lot. So
Soft
I've got
green pea? Like it was a cooked pea?
soft as soft could be.
You
But
wouldn't you wouldn't think that should hurt.
no. So I've had nothing done other than I've had 5 prescriptions issued to me to try and sort this all out. My dentist actually gave me injections before she let me go home to try and quell the pain
Oh wow.
that she'd caused.
And yet here you are gonna spend probably an
Uh,
hour plus chatting
I
with me.
I am terrifically grumpy. I mean,
Oh. Yeah, we
even
didn't really do much pre-show chatting. I was running
even
15 minutes
yeah,
late, so
even by my own standards, I am really grumpy. So we'll see how this goes. If I get mad at Sansa, it's probably me, not her.
Well, Sansa's done plenty of things to make us mad at her over the
Good point.
story, but we'll see how it goes this time.
All right, let's get down to business. How did we leave Sansa Stark? So last time we saw Sansa, last time she had a POV at least, it was the morning of the marriage of Joffrey and Marjorie, and Joffrey hacked up the wedding gift that Tyrion had provided. Later in Tyrion's POV, we saw Joffrey die at his wedding. Cersei accused Tyrion and Sansa of murder, but Sansa was not around to hear that accusation. Where did she go? Let's find out. Why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. And this summary, is courtesy of Jenny of Oldstones.
I love it when the team get together.
I know, me too. It's
It's
good
great.
stuff. And
I wish you told me before I wrote the summary it was crap.
I think I did. I don't think you
Did you?
checked your phone in the interim
Uh,
between me
uh,
texting you and you writing the summary.
that that
Uh,
that has the ring of truth to it.
I should have told you last week. I knew this was the deal. I knew she had written this summary. I forgot to tell you until this past weekend, and
And I was
apparently,
Johnny on the spot.
you know, right? What are the chances of that?
But you know what? Jenny's is much better, so we're going with Jenny's.
That's right. And of course, Jenny always titles her summary, which we love. And so she calls this one the Tintinnabulation of the Bells. Did I say that right?
Unusually for you, yes.
Okay. Tintinnabulation. I like it. That's a pretty cool word.
Uh-huh.
I do really butcher pronunciations of some
Words
words.
you're not very familiar with. Yeah, you mess them up
I
badly.
do. I do. Anyway, so the bells begin to toll in the distance as Sansa reaches the Godswood. Joffrey is dead. 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 That was me, not Sansa. No, actually, that was Sansa. Although he hadn't been when she'd fled the throne room, sobbing alongside Lady Tanda. She wonders if they were tears of joy, since really all she wants to do is dance.
She finds her hidden clothing and dresses clumsily for her flight, feeling numb and dreamy. As she takes off her hairnet, she realizes that one of the gems is missing. When a drunk Ser Dontos arrives, she accuses him of poisoning Joffrey with the gemstone, but he denies it and informs her that Tyrion has been arrested.
He leads her out of the Godswood wearing his surcoat, wanting to be a knight again. They descend a dark gallery of stairs to a cliffside outside the castle. Sansa balks upon learning that they must use a hidden ladder carved into the cliff face. But Dantas tells her it's the only way. And when they reach the bottom, a man is waiting with a skiff and rows them into the bay.
Nearing dawn when the trio approaches a trading galley. After Sansa is handed aboard, she discovers it is Peter Baelish who's her rescuer. Dantas asks for his reward, 10,000 gold dragons. Instead, 3 crossbow men kill him at Peter's command. Peter's nonchalant as he tells a horrified Sansa that he was her benefactor all along. Sansa wonders if she's escaped the Lannisters into something even worse.
Peter explains Dantos was only helping her for the money, and since Peter dared not approach her openly, Dantos made the perfect intermediary. He informs her that it was his note inviting her to come to the Godswood if she wanted to go home. As he leads her to the cabin, Peter also reveals that he provided the jousting dwarves at Joffrey's wedding. When Sansa asks why he wished Joffrey dead, Peter replies that he had no motive. He just wanted to confuse his foes.
Peter informs her that he loved Catelyn, but couldn't marry her due to the disparity of their stations. He also tells her that he and Catelyn were more than friends. She gave him a gift a woman can give only once. He adds that in a better world she might have been his daughter. He tells her that she's safe now with him and she's going home.
Well, first off, thank you, Jenny.
Yes, thank you, Jenny.
Great,
Great
great
stuff.
summary as we
Yep.
anticipated.
Yep. Uh, so one thing that's interesting to me is how much more detailed Dantus's and Sansa's plans were than we'd been led to believe. It
Right.
always
Yeah.
felt like it was little more than there'll be chaos at the wedding, slip away. But actually, there was a ship waiting, there was a boat waiting, there was a route planned out. She had clothes hidden.
Yeah. Right.
I actually wonder about if this was one of the reasons that she was sort of kept quiet, why she's had so few POVs, because we didn't need with any time with her, she would have to really think about these things and giving
Right.
the story away. Whereas, but only
Yes.
dipping into her story, we were able to. You could justify not bringing up every detail of the plan.
Right. And with us getting Tyrion's view of her, we got to see that she was going to the Godswood a lot. We
Exactly.
didn't know why she was going there. We didn't know what was happening there.
Exactly. Whereas if we'd been POV following her, we'd have heard all this, and this wouldn't have been quite so dramatic. So yeah, it does make a certain
Yes,
amount of sense.
it does. And
Uh,
speaking of the plan, it's possible that she could have slipped away in the general chaos of the wedding, but the violent death of Joffrey sure did help mask her ability to slip away.
Well, I don't know. It's a double-edged sword because obviously it created the chaos that made it very easy to get away, but it also meant that they would send guards for her. If she'd slipped away during the dwarf jousting and the death had never happened, she would have equally not been missed, and they wouldn't have sent the entire city guard after her.
Yes, that's
But when
true.
you go
That's
missing when
true.
the king dies, then they're going to send everyone after you.
Then it looks a lot more suspicious.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
true. And Joffrey focusing on Tyrion might have made it more difficult for her to slip away, if not for him dying, because she was sitting next to Tyrion, and Joffrey kept going on with Tyrion, and so the focus was right at the section of the table she was sitting in. So,
True enough. Yeah.
and Tyrion himself almost took her out of the throne room when he tried to go change out of his wine
Oh
drenched
yeah.
surcoat or whatever he was wearing, doublet or whatever. Had he taken her out of the throne room, she'd have had to like push him over or something and
Yeah.
run away or something like that.
I mean, Sansa is thinking of others. He thinks poor Marjorie that she's twice wed and twice widowed, but of course, both of Marjorie's weddings are problematic for Marjorie. I mean, both of them
Yes.
made her a queen of sorts, but both of them were to people who I don't think Renly was a bad guy, but I don't think Renly was very interested in Marjorie. I think Joffrey
No,
was a
me either.
bad guy, and she's better off without him. So
Yes, and she didn't go into this particular marriage with her eyes shut. Sansa tried to warn her that episode back in Sansa 2 when they went hawking together.
yeah,
She told her that he was a terrible person, basically. And Marjorie said, "It's fine. I know he's spoiled and cruel, but I have Loras on the
yeah,
Kingsguard. He'll protect me." And Sansa also told Marjorie previous to that with her grandmother Olenna at that supper the truth about Joffrey. So several Tyrells knew that Joffrey was problematic, and the rest surely saw his behavior as the wedding approached
yeah.
and had to have gotten some suspicions raised.
Yeah. One really nice touch for me is that Sansa has a twinge of regret at Tyrion's downfall in this chapter, um,
Right.
which I that both it sort of touched me and it rang true as well because her revulsion never waned, but hindsight, which starts today, is going to cast a good light on him. He was actually very good to her, and especially perhaps now with Peter Baelish as her perhaps future lover, she might really begin to
Ugh.
wish that Tyrion was by her side because he could be every bit as bad as the Lannisters and also way less gentlemanly towards her than Tyrion ever was.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine, at the end of this chapter, he tells her widowhood, they're Peter and Sansa are talking about Tyrion being arrested, and he says widowhood will suit you well, and she thinks I may never have to sleep next to Tyrion again, and then she thinks that is what I wanted, right? So,
Right.
maybe she's already starting to think maybe it wasn't as bad as I
Yeah.
was thinking it was at the time.
I'm sure this
And
morning, if you'd said to her, "You want to get out of here on a ship with Peter Baelish?" she'd have been like, "Heck yeah." Now,
yeah, right.
having seen his mask slip and also what's happened to Tyrion and what's happening to Tyrion at the hands of her true enemies, the rest of the Lannisters,
Right.
she's immediately beginning to think, well, the grass maybe wasn't that much greener on this side of the street. And obviously, she didn't know what Peter Baelish was like until 10 minutes ago, but she does. She's beginning to
right.
get it now.
Yeah, and she also realizes that if Tyrion's been blamed, he's been arrested for Joffrey's murder, she realizes I've likely been blamed as well
Right,
because
right,
and she doesn't know this, but we know that Cersei immediately named her as co-conspirator. Dontos didn't tell her that bit.
right.
And of course, Sansa's sudden disappearance only aids in her looking
Oh,
guilty,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
and we have to wonder at this point whether her disappearance makes Tyrion look more guilty as
Well,
well.
that's the problem for Tyrion. It does, because it does look like she was that she was in on it, and who else would she have been in on it with than her husband?
Right.
You know,
Yes.
so the only bit that sort of like works in his favor is that he was so blatantly not trying to escape. You know, he was right
Right.
there
Yeah.
and worried
And
about. Yeah,
he moved toward
right,
Cersei and
right,
Joffrey's
yeah.
body. So
So Sansa notices that the one of the amethysts is missing from her hairnet, and notices that it left a black sort of oily substance behind it. So she's kind of, she's adding to our suspicions that that might have been the murder weapon. Dontus reminds us that these were amethysts from Ashai, and we know that Ashai is sort of like the center of magic and poisons on Essos. So it all sort of comes together. And one more time,
sure.
Olenna Tyrell messed with uh, Sansa's hairnet.
Yep. Yeah, it's certainly more supporting evidence that the hairnet possibly was responsible for Joffrey's death. And now Dantos, he uh, disagrees. He says that it was not a poison stone; it was just magic, and claimed that he did nothing. The stones did nothing. Joff choked on his pie.
Right, but
Uh,
but the thing is, again, going to back to what we said last time, the various components of this plan didn't know the other components of this plan. Gontus was told, "You get her to that wedding wearing that hairnet, no matter what,"
right.
and he did not know
Yes.
anything else. And get her out of there, have a set of clothes laid by, So that was his part of the plan. He didn't know what happened in between.
Yes, that is true. That is
I,
true.
I think he's
That
being
that's
naive if he believes what he's saying, but I think he's probably trying to salve her conscience a little bit that she maybe did bring the murder weapon to the party.
yes. You that is very that is very possible. The way you might set up a plan like this, it is very possible that Dantos might not have known what exactly the hairnet was capable of,
Yeah,
aside from needing her to be wearing it.
right.
And yeah, as you mentioned, Olenna Tyrell touched the hairnet when fussing with Sansa's hair. Shay also touched the hairnet, but Shay was not at the wedding, although she did beg to come to the wedding,
Right.
and she begged for with Tyrion earlier in previous chapters to come to the wedding as well. So, but neither of those two were described as touching the chalice. So, it still could have been a third person who possibly jostled Sansa and pulled a stone out.
Right.
And,
Of course, if it was Shay, it could be Tyrion. I mean, Tyrion didn't act like he had anything to do with it last week, but yeah, he really didn't. I don't believe that even when I'm saying it, but Shay and Tyrion have a relationship. So if she did pull one off and hand it to him and say drop that in the wine, that could have happened. But why is that not coming up in his POV? The other person that Shay has a relationship with, of course, is Varys.
yeah, right, right.
But Varys wouldn't need. Feels like Varys wouldn't need Sansa's handmaiden to pull an amethyst off a headdress in the bedroom before the wedding and
Right.
then bring it to him. How is Sansa involved at
Well,
that point?
yeah, at that point, just pull the pull it off, pull the stone out of the hairnet at any point, and
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Although I will mention, speaking of the hairnet, Sansa still has the hairnet on her person. She shoves it into a cloak pocket when
Right.
she hears Dantos approaching. So, and probably that's for the best, because if it was found with her, if you assume at some point they might find her clothing and be like, oh, that's what Sansa was wearing
Right.
to the wedding. And if that hairnet is found with it, and if there are things on the hairnet that are incriminating, it would strengthen the case against Tyrion even further.
Yeah. So
And,
go on.
we probably should have held off on that hairnet discussion from last week until this chapter, because now it seems more likely that the Ghost of High Heart was right about the maiden with purple fangs dripping with venom
Yeah.
when she discovers that a stone is missing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
oh well, it is what it is.
Um
And
go on.
Sansa thinks before she starts her descent down the cliff that it's dawn. She thinks Oh, it was Dontos that killed Joff. So Dontos was, we had discussed this last chapter. Dontos was in the throne room and he knew about the hairnet, and he's a fool, so he messes with people. So
Right.
it is
Yeah. Yeah.
possible he could have been the one that pulled the hairnet,
I,
pulled the stone out of the hairnet
and
and
would
dropped
have
it
had
in.
close access to Joffrey as well. And that
Yes,
also
right.
goes to why Littlefinger might want him silenced, you know.
Yes,
His secret
yes,
dies right here. Mm.
yes.
So the escape involves this climb down the cliffside, which is pretty dangerous, I would think. I mean, there it was nearing dawn. No, it wasn't nearing dawn. It's the middle of the night as they're climbing down this
Right.
cliff face. Now, I don't think
Yes.
Sansa does much cardio, and I'm pretty sure that the only thing Dantas does is drink. So, for both of them, she wisely makes him go first, which I would
Yes.
not want a heavy guy drunk as a skunk above me on this treacherous climb. But she also that gives her an opportunity to sort of like weigh her options because she's left alone on the top of the cliff and she could turn around and go back. But Dantas has painted a picture of not a very good scene for her there. I mean, obviously she knows that King's Landing is terrible for her, but she also at that point is having second thoughts about running away with Ser Dontos because he is drunk and he is taking her down a cliff face in the dark.
Yes, that is a problem.
But
Now, we mentioned in background ages ago that Dantas grew up here in King's Landing and in and out of the Red Keep as a squire. So he's got some home field advantage
yeah,
and probably knows a lot of things that others don't know, like this hidden cliff face.
right.
So maybe that's how he knows that this cliff face exists. But he knows about this cliff face hidden ladder, but not a way to get from the Godswood to outside the Red Keep without going
Back
down
in.
the like serpentine stairs that's like in the heart of everything. So
Yeah.
and walking through public areas. So I was thinking there's so many hidden chambers and hidden passageways in the Red Keep. You would have thought they could get from the Godswood outside without having to go through public access
Good
areas.
point. Good point. Um, so there's a guy waiting for them at the bottom of the stairs, well, a little way from the bottom of the stairs, who has a familiar face, a guy called Oswell. Uh, why is his face familiar, Mackelly? Because I don't know.
Well, to this point, we don't get much to go on. He's described as tall, gangling with long white hair and a hooked nose. And I will say, very, very astute observers might be able to puzzle out why his face is so familiar if you put all the pieces together. But I'm not going to be the one that spoils it. So
Okay.
when it's time to find out, we will. But if you're really looking, you can
He
probably put
joins
some
them on the
pieces
ship,
together.
right? The only person left in the
Yes,
boat is the body of Ser Dontos. So
yes,
Oswell has gone with her. Okay, interesting. Hmm.
and he's not the only familiar thing in this scene. The ship itself is new to Sansa, but we've actually heard tell of this ship
Go
before.
on.
We get a description of the figurehead of the ship. It's a merman with a crown blowing a seashell horn.
Right.
And at the small council table, when it was decided that Littlefinger would go to the Vale to woo Lysa Arryn,
Gotcha.
Littlefinger told us that the Merlin King was available and waiting to take him to the Vale. This ship very much
Sounds like
fits the
it would be
description.
called the
Yes.
Merlin King. Yes. Yeah. Interesting.
So it seems he's still commissioning this ship to take him around Westeros, or has he never actually left the bay? They just went out into the bay and have been anchored out there ever since.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean that's the question. Has he gone to the Vale and met with Lysa yet, or has he just been waiting around for this to happen and just been floating around out
Timeline
there?
wise, how long has he been gone? Because he went to treat with Marjorie and Renly. Did he come back after that?
Yes,
He
he came
did.
back. He went to go set up the Tyrell Lannister alliance for
Right.
the before the Battle of the
Yeah.
Blackwater. Then he came back after the Battle of the Blackwater. That's when he was at the small
That's right.
council table
Right.
discussing wooing Lysa Arryn, and then he left again on the Merlin King, and we don't know yet what
Right.
he's been up to.
Right. Okay. So does all this lead to the sort of final end of innocence for Sansa? I mean, certainly what tattered remains she had of her romantic notions about gallantry and things must be pretty much squashed by now. I mean, Peter
Yeah,
Baelish is
yeah.
not a knight, but I think she's already given up on knights, to be honest.
She 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 and Sandor Clegane are in the
Right,
anti-knights club.
exactly. uh, so yeah, I mean, her story arc is one of, you know, dreams being one by one eaten away by reality, and this
Yes, very
again is
much.
it's so rough on her. It's so rough, and
It,
it's so rough that she didn't make an alliance with Tyrion. You know,
yeah, I feel like basically since she went to go tell Cersei about Ned's plans to send of sending her and Arya home, it has just been beatdown after
yeah,
beatdown for this poor
yeah,
girl.
no
It's
doubt,
it's been rough,
yeah,
and this chapter kind toward the end of the chapter when she realizes that Ser Dontos was in it for the money as well, she thinks, is everything just a lie after a lie? Like, is no one does no one ever tell the truth in this world? And yeah, I mean that's it's got to just continually eat away at any romantic notions she's
yeah,
had about life.
yeah. But I mean, look, we don't know Peter Baelish that well. He's a schemer and a manipulator for sure, and he
Yes,
certainly, unquestionably, has romantic notions towards Sansa. But he might turn out to be very gallant and kind, for all we know.
possibly. Yeah, you can't rule it out. I mean, there's a lot of evidence against it, but
Yeah.
you mentioned about him being a schemer and stuff, and I've just remembered we see now why he scooped Varys about the Sansa Willis Tyrell marriage plot
Because
because
she told Dontos.
she told Dantas the plan was off, and Dantas must have told Littlefinger, and then Littlefinger told Tywin to get the plan back on again.
And he was still in King's Landing at the time.
Yes,
Right. Because
he was back
right. Because he he
because
he had left King's Landing when Dontos told Sansa that he had a powerful friend who was traveling at the moment. And we
right.
speculated even then that it might be Littlefinger.
That was one of the names
Yeah.
we threw out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he was back because the Tyrells were in town.
Right. Right. Right.
So it
Right.
was after the Battle of the
Right.
Blackwater. So Peter was very much back at that point.
Right. So all right, Littlefinger. It is hard to argue with his logic over the killing of Sedontus. The man was clearly a liability. And not only that, if he'd been allowed to go back, he would have arrived back at the wedding just after dawn, laden down with 10,000 golden dragons, had been absent for like 3 hours just around the death of the king. Even if that initial impression didn't arouse suspicion, his future was still that of a drunken fool desperately trying to entertain his mortal foes. How long before he either inadvertently revealed himself or, as Littlefinger predicts, sold out the information for more drinking money?
Yep. So, but my question about all that is, would it have mattered? Clearly, Sansa has disappeared.
Well, it matters
And,
to Peter Baelish.
exactly. I mean, Cersei already thinks that Sansa's guilty. So Dantos spilling the beans doesn't change that. Whether Dantos does anything or not, Sansa or Cersei already thinks Sansa's guilty. So, killing Dantos is really most beneficial to Littlefinger. He's the one who's in a pickle if Dantos blabs.
Yeah.
And so it's certainly more incriminating. Now he frames it like he did Sansa a favor by killing Dantos,
Yes.
saying he was going to sell you a second time. But if she saw it and thought about it, she'd be like, well, the queen already thinks
Right,
I'm
right.
guilty, so
And so it would have been more interesting if it was Ilan Payne, say, if Ilan Payne was her rescuer. Would he have killed him?
oh,
Well, you
right.
definitely wouldn't point to him being a drunken fool who's bound to spill the beans, into his cups at some point.
Can, can Sir Ilian write? That is the
Yeah.
question. Does he have ways? Could they hold up drawings
Yeah.
and be like, was it this guy?
Sansa was doomed by a game of charades involving certain. Uh,
Charades.
so the one thing I'll say that about all that though is why do that in front of Sansa? He kills Ser
Yeah.
Dontos and then shows her to a cabin. Switch those two things around. He's he
Right.
clearly wants her as a partner. Now we know he's every bit as calculating, ruthless, Machiavellian as we'd conjectured. But the first thing you did when you buy her, when you have her by your side, is to murder her only friend. Literally, the only person who's been friendly to her the last 6 months. You murder that guy in front of her, guy she personally saved the life of.
Yeah, as you're saying that, it makes me wonder if maybe it was staged that way so that she would be like, nobody. I've got nobody. The
Right.
one person I thought had my back turns out was selling me for 10,000 gold coins. And that's when she says, is it all lies? And he says, yeah, except for you and me, of course. And
Right.
I only tell the
Right.
truth to you.
But you
So,
could let her hear the 10,000 gold coins, then show her to the cabin, then kill
yes.
him. Yeah,
Yes.
it's the thing is, all of the rescue shows that he's 95% of all the things you might think of him, but the murder takes away any illusion she might have about him, you know,
Sure,
as a
sure.
good person. That gets rid of that. And does he want that? Is he that abusive towards her already that he wants her cowed and afraid of him? He's
Right. To
not even
fear
going to
him,
plan
yes.
to woo her in any way, as an equal. He's just going to murder everyone until she submits, basically.
Until she thinks I've got no one.
Right.
I might as well submit to
Stockholm syndrome. That's
Littlefinger.
what he's banking on, isn't
Kind
it?
of.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So we learn something that we had questioned the origination of last chapter. We had wondered who hired the jousting dwarves, and we discover in this chapter it was Littlefinger of all people. We'd assumed it was Cersei, or possibly Joff had you know, managed to pull it together on his own, which seemed a bit of a stretch even back last chapter.
yes. And it is it it's a throwaway point in some ways, it's just like, oh, you're so scheming, you even did that. But it is it was very brutal for Tyrion and could have tipped him over the edge. Could certainly add to the circumstantial evidence of why you might think it was Tyrion that poisoned and killed the king, because he'd
Right.
just done this to
Yes.
him. And so Baelish might have been thinking that through. Let's have that be
Yes.
the last
Right.
thing the king sees, and the last thing
Yeah.
Tyrion notices the king doing.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Very, very true. Yeah. He he points out that he had to really spell it out for Joff why he should have these dwarfs
Right,
jousting
yeah.
at his feast. We were thinking maybe Joff parsed it out on his own. He couldn't even see the opportunity to offend Tyrion when it was presented to him. He had to be further explained. So, yeah, it seems your rationale for why he might have done it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Which,
It
which
certainly created chaos and distraction
right,
for Sansa's escape.
but it's an extra layer. If let's say Dantas poisoned the king, it's an extra layer to help to frame Tyrion for it by
Right.
by the things you put on as entertainment at the wedding.
Yes.
It shows some
Yes.
deep
Yeah.
thought if that's what he did.
Yeah. Absolutely. And while we're talking about Littlefinger sowing this discord within the Lannister family, Sansa asks, "Why are you conspiring against the Lannisters? They've given you so much. They made
Right.
you Lord of Harrenhal. They made you Lord Paramount of the Trident."
Legit question, Sansa. Well done.
Absolutely is a legit question. And his response is, I have no motive. I always keep my foes confused, and besides, I'm 1,000 leagues away in the Vale.
I don't know. It sounds true. It sounds like how he
Yes,
would think, but it does. It's kind of like the anti-Varys. Varys's stated goal is always the health of the realm, and Peter Baelish's always seems to be the exact opposite. The most
yes.
mischief.
It does seem like now he says he's playing the Game of Thrones, and I guess this is how he feels he needs to play it. But
Mm.
he
What's
says
his path to the throne? I mean, good God, that's
right.
torturous.
Yes, it would be. He'd have to step on a lot of people to get to somehow
Right.
be the last one
He'd be
standing to
better off
take the
courting
throne.
Marcella.
Yeah, right. I mean, it would be a more direct path than what
Yeah.
he will have to do to get to the throne here, as gross as that thought is. But he refers to the Lannisters as his foes.
Yes, he
You know,
did.
you
Yeah.
keep your foes confused. So why? Why does he consider them foes? Is it his love of Kat and revenge for what they'd done to her family? This plan was put in motion before the Red Wedding, so it wasn't about that.
Yeah, and what they did to Kat's family was kind of him as well.
Right.
He was pretty
Yes,
complicit in that.
absolutely. And yes, he's created a lot of chaos. To go back to your earlier point, he he told the lie about the dagger, which led to Tyrion's arrest by Catelyn, which led to the war in the Riverlands, and mysteriously disappeared right when Jaime and the Lannister men ambushed Ned in the streets
Yeah.
when Ned broke his leg and Jory Cassell died. He helped Cersei defeat Ned by betraying him with the gold cloaks. He ruined the Sansa Willis Tyrell wedding plan, and as you pointed out so well in this chapter, he has not only sowed resentment between Joff and Tyrion with the dwarf jousting, but he did it at the exact right time to make it look like Joff's death was retaliation for the
Right.
humiliation and embarrassment.
Right.
So,
But are we taking it for granted now that he is involved in the murder? I mean,
I was going to ask you that.
we
Yes,
we
right.
don't think he choked anymore. We think he was probably poisoned. We think the hairnet was probably involved. But
It's pointing that way.
we don't know who it was. The one person who was pointedly noticed playing with it was Elena Tyrell. And
Right.
does she in order for her to use that, she must be in on the plot, and then that still leads us back to Littlefinger in one way or another.
Right. And we mentioned this last chapter, she and Littlefinger were working on opposite plans for Sansa.
Right.
He wanted Sansa to escape with him. She wanted Sansa to go to Highgarden and marry Willis. So would they have been working together?
But maybe that's
That's
exactly goes to what he just said, always keep my enemies guessing.
confused.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
True.
basically he sees everyone as his enemy, even
Yes.
the people
Yeah.
he's allied with.
That's it's he has created so much confusion. It's hard to pin down what
Right.
he's exactly trying to do, and
Right.
that's one of the things he says. Is sometimes you even do things that work against you when you're playing the Game of Thrones
Right.
in order to keep people guessing.
Yeah. It
So
is kind of it was kind of pointed that he invited Sansa to play the Game of Thrones though. I mean, it didn't sound like he was only saying be my paramour and we'll play the Game of Thrones together. He was saying you're playing this game now and now you're going to have to learn to play by
right,
the big boy rules.
I that stuck out to me as well. I mean, I guess in some ways it makes sense since she's, as far as a lot of people believe, the only living Stark.
Yeah,
So surely she will want to reclaim Winterfell in the North for her
absolutely. Yeah.
family. But is that the same as playing the Game of Thrones?
Hmm.
I'm not
Well,
sure if it is or
if
not.
she styles herself as Queen of the North, then
Well, true.
yeah.
Yes, then she's sitting a throne.
So
And now, if she does decide to play, watching and learning from Littlefinger might give her some valuable lessons because he seems to be playing it quite well, whereas her father, Ned, played it about as terribly.
yes.
He was given all the power and was unable to do anything with it.
Yeah.
So maybe she can
Uh,
find a balance between the
to be
two, the honor
fair,
and the
to be
cutthroat nature.
fair, Ned did unleash the irresistible force that is Lord Beric Dondarrion on the Riverlands. And that still hasn't finished. So he may still
That's
he's
true.
playing the long game, Ned.
He is. He is playing the long
But
game.
the other thing that Peter Baelish says, which is worthy of comment, I think, is that he once again claims that he took Kat's virginity, which is something that Kat has vehemently denied, and well, for the last time, she's vehemently denied it. And now he's
Okay.
free to say it as often as he wants because she's gone. But it's a slightly strange claim. And it's hard to know if it's just braggadocio or if he's sort of projecting. We believe he did have an affair with Lysa, but he's
Right.
trying to project that onto Kat. That Kat was always the one he wanted, but he could never get there.
Right. 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 Yeah, it's very he said, she said.
Well, it's he said, she vehemently denied.
Right, yes. Now, he's got a history of lying and scheming. We don't have similar evidence of Cat being uh, cut from that similar
No.
cloth. So you would tend to believe Cat when she says, "No, I did not do that."
Yeah.
So it is weird that he keeps. I mean, everybody has mentioned it.
Yeah.
That he tells this to pretty much anyone who will listen, including her own daughter.
Yeah.
Which, if he hadn't then gone and told Sansa that she could have been his daughter, that might have been the creepiest thing that he did. But unfortunately, he then followed it up with, "If in a better world, you might have been my daughter," and that's just super creepy.
Yeah, but maybe not. Maybe what he's saying is, hey, I did love your mother. We could have been a couple. We could have had children. You could have been my own child. And also, that's slightly less horrifying than what I actually want from you.
Let's hope that that's not the case. But
Yeah. Uh, and then the
yeah,
last thing he says in the chapter is that she's safe with him. Uh, and that they're going to sail home. But where does he mean by home?
right. Where is home? They can't go to Winterfell. It's been
Exactly.
sacked, and they, in order to get to Winterfell, they'd have to get through now hostile Bolton and Ironborn territories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe he means his home back to the Fingers,
Or
back to the
Harrenhal.
or Harrenhal. Although Gregor Clegane is there right now,
True.
so
Probably
it
not.
wouldn't be great if they rolled up
Except
into
except
Harrenhal.
they're still allied. Littlefinger has never done anything to offend the Lannisters that they know of.
Right. Although he would have Sansa Stark by his
That's
side when he rolled into the
true.
castle.
That's true. She would be a red flag.
Yeah. Oh, I just found her on
Yeah,
on my way in.
Her name is Jane Poole.
Now, a third option. Oh, that's true. Gregor Clegane might not know what Sansa Stark looks like, but if he finds out that he had let Arya Stark slip through his fingers, he might be rounding up any females of that age, marching them all to the Red Keep and saying, "Is this a Stark? Is this a
Good
Stark?"
point.
But anyway, a third option is they possibly could be finally going to the Vale because Lysa Arryn is Sansa's aunt, and maybe he's considering going to family, like going home,
That's
or
true.
as close
Good
as
point.
they can make it.
All right, do you have some background for us?
I do. So at Peter's command, Lothar Brune signals to crossbowmen to fire on poor Ser Dontos. And if you're wondering why his name sounds familiar,
Because he's the
it's
drunk guy who's
because
been helping Sansa this whole time?
no, not that
Oh, the
guy.
other guy. Sorry, I got you.
The
Yeah,
other
okay.
guy, Lothar Brune. He's been around since very early in our story. He's basically been around since the Starks got to King's Landing. It was Lothar who beat Jory Cassell in the Hands Tourney, and then he went on. Lothar, that is, went on to lose to Robar Royce. Lothar also rode in Joff's name day tourney very early in A Clash of Kings, where he was heralded as in service of Peter Baelish. Now, he was supposed to be Dontos' opponent in the jousting, if Dontos hadn't been so drunk that he fell off his horse, which led to Sansa needing to save him from Joff's wrath. And a quick aside here, that sounds like a solid opportunity for Littlefinger to hear the news of Dontos being saved by Sansa.
Oh, good point.
Since
Yes,
it
yeah.
happened in a match against
Yes.
Tilt against one of his own
Good
men.
point. And plus, Lothar Brone has been like wanting his revenge on Ser Dontos. I was going to win that.
That's right. You took a victory away from me. Now, the last we saw of Lothar, he was fighting in the Battle of the Blackwater. And in that battle, he tore through Fossaway men to capture Sir John Fossaway and kill Sir Brian and Sir Edwin Fossaway. Those heroics earned him the nickname Lothar Apple Eater, since the Fossaway sigil is an apple. For his efforts in the battle, Lothar earned his knighthood and is to be granted land and keep in the Riverlands at the end of the war. He also took on a new sigil since the battle. It's a bit of a twist on the house's sigil. He's got the brown bear paw on white, like other Bruins would have. However, he's added 3 apple cores underneath it. Red, green, red.
I like it, yes.
Isn't he clever?
Yeah, very good. All right. Comparison with the television show, it was very much captured. The only real differences are that it seems that Ser Dontos whisks her away from the scene of the crime seemingly on a whim. It's kind of like, chaos is happening. Come with me. Now's the time. But then that's kind of like belied by what happens next. There's the kind of a montage of them running through the city, and she's acquired traveling clothes. We don't see why or how. There is a rowboat waiting for them, but it is unoccupied. He rows her to the ship, but everything else is pretty much exactly as in the book, including the killing of Ser Dontos, which is pretty horrible.
Okay. Poor Ser Dontos doesn't survive either version of the story.
Pedantry Corner, I just think it's astonishing that Ser Dontos didn't fall to his death. He could barely stand up. He climbed down. I mean, she was propping him up on the walk to the cliff top, and then he climbed down.
He couldn't walk downstairs. He fell down the stairs and retched, I believe it was.
So,
I'd been thinking about something, but I can't say it's pedantry because I don't know exactly if it's an issue or not. But first of all, I like that. Yes, it does seem very... very unlikely he was going to scale.
When she sends him down first, I'm like, good call. Plus,
right. If she falls, she can at least
land on him. Exactly.
But I was thinking about the fact that after Ser Dontos is shot with the crossbow bolts and falls into the boat, I guess, the little boat that they rowed out on, Lothar Brun throws the torch that he has
into the boat,
into the ship. The boat, I mean, yes, and it immediately starts, lights on fire, and then the fire just consumes the boat. And I just wondered, I was thinking, first of all, a little boat like that, you think a lot of water might have kicked up into the inside wood of the boat. And I just don't know if one torch thrown onto a boat would cause it to burst into flames.
Flip side of that, and my maritime credentials are not strong, just FYI, but don't they seal boats with like pitch, which probably is pretty flammable?
Oh, that could be. Yeah. You would think it would be a bad idea to seal anything wooden.
Flammable with, things. I guess you already think it's flammable, so you're like, take our chances. Let's just not use torches.
I mean, like, right, if you're using a torch on a ship, like if Sir Lothar had accidentally dropped the torch onto the ship, the Merman King, with that whole thing got up.
We'd probably have buckets of sand nearby just for that occasion.
I guess so. Yes, put it out.
All right, news and notes.
Well, the first thing we wanted to mention is that we have our Sustainer video chat with our Buy Me a Coffee Lords Paramount and our Royal Kingsguard. Ostensibly tonight.
I'm not ready.
Not tonight while you and I are... not while we're recording this tonight, but tonight when this episode goes live. Although technically, if you're a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer and you're listening to your early episode, it's tomorrow. Don't call it tonight.
And then you said that one of the episodes from Game of Thrones, Vanity Fair had a list of 25 perfect episodes from the last 25 years. And the episode Blackwater, which I assume was the Battle of the Blackwater, which aired on May 27th, 2012, which was the 9th episode of season 2. And it was one of the 4 episodes that George Martin himself directed, which is interesting. Got to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, he's 1 for 4. 1 for 4, he got a perfect episode. So maybe he should have done them all.
Think about that actually for a Wildfire Side chat. What was our favorite episode? Because somebody was asking me what my favorite
Oh,
TV episodes of any TV show were the other day, and I was like, oh, I don't remember specific episodes really. So, like, I don't,
yes. That'd
yeah,
be
I'm
a
not
good one.
sure I remember Blackwater as being particularly good. I think it was good, but I often liked the ones where it was more sort of like bouncy around intrigue than the big staged battles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Me too. Me too. I can't recall which episode off the top of my head. I think I know which one it is, but I'd have to look it up. I recall, you know me and my hyperbolic
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
praise of things. Say, I think I put it on Facebook or something like that back in the day, that it was the favorite episode of any show I'd ever watched. But I can't remember
Was
exactly
it
which one
Game
it
of
was.
Thrones?
So
Oh, it was Game of
it was
Thrones.
Game
Okay.
of Thrones. I think I know which one it was, but I don't want to guess
Okay.
without
All right.
looking up.
Well,
So
that's join as a sustainer, and you can watch a Wildfire Side chat where we reveal this.
yeah, if our sustainers like that idea, let us know. We will definitely do a chat on that. And one thing I meant to mention to you is that there was a discussion on the Discord server today, and one of our newer listeners asked if, or one of our newer members to the Discord server asked if you and I had any other podcasts that we did together, because uh, this listener enjoyed this show and was hoping to listen to some of our other shows. And Kebby Levy said, "I would love to be a fly on the wall when Mackelly proposes that idea to Simon."
Man, they know us too well. I was already pulling the face that she wanted to see.
Yes.
uh,
Now, I don't know that everybody knows. We have talked about other podcast
I've even
ideas.
written a script for an episode.
You
Hmm.
have, you have. That's right. For
Three
the
body
three
problem,
body problem.
which I'm rereading
Yes.
actually as we speak. Well, not as we speak. I mean, that would be rude.
Oh, we're that would be quite the multitasking job right there.
Yeah. Well, one day, when we can give up our day jobs,
That's right.
we'll do 5 different
we're
podcasts.
we're gonna need a few more
Yeah,
sustainers before
exactly.
we get to that
Yeah.
point, but we can dream.
All right, let's conclude this one. So Littlefinger was behind the escape plot and probably Joffrey's death too. It has to be good news for Sansa. I mean, I know we're terrified for her now because she's moved from Tyrion's actually gentle considerations to Lord Peter Baelish's, which are anything but, I would imagine. Uh but she is out of King's Landing, where she has been
Yeah,
trapped in misery for a long time.
yeah. Yeah, we thought it unlikely that Dontos was masterminding this plan. It just didn't seem. It seemed a little
Yeah.
over his head, and we were very concerned if it wasn't. If he really was the only person putting this thing together. And yes, I agree. It's seeming more and more likely that Joff was killed, not choked. And one thing Sansa didn't do was ask Peter Baelish about the hairnet. I wish she had asked him about that when he said why. She said, you know, why are you turning on the Lannisters, basically? And he said, why do I wish Joff dead? That's as close as we get to him admitting
Right.
that he was behind it.
Yeah.
So, but, uh, you know, if the hairnet was involved, Sansa taking it inadvertently is probably good for both her and Tyrion.
Yes.
And you know, as we've discussed in this chapter, is Olenna messing with the hairnet a red herring? Is it more likely it was Ser Dontos, since he had motive and opportunity, just as we never heard of Olenna. We never heard of either of them touching the chalice, but it doesn't necessarily mean that went in that stone went into that exact sip that
Right.
Joffrey took at the end. Maybe there is a delay. Maybe it takes 10 minutes
Right.
or something like
Right.
that to kick in.
Yeah.
So, and then as far as you were mentioning being in, now she's in with Littlefinger. I just, he admits to doing things without having a particular motive, but why is he saving Sansa? He says it's because he loved Kat, and so, he loves Sansa like a daughter. Is that enough to go through all this to help her
Well,
escape?
I think he definitely has ulterior motives too, which are too hard to read because he is an agent of chaos, you know. So, but yes, I think there's more to it than just love for Sansa. But I do think that is a part of it for sure.
Yeah, so far he's been playing the Game of Thrones pretty well.
I'm not sure he's any closer to the throne though.
No, but he certainly is creating a lot of
Yeah,
chaos.
yeah. Um,
And so it's hard to imagine he would not use Sansa as he needed in his game.
One thing for Baelish that would be good is if it was Ser Dontos who was both the architect and deliverer of this, is that he's out of the picture now. If Olenna Tyrell was in cahoots with Dontos and Baelish, and they all agreed and they all worked together, well, that's somebody who knows Baelish's culpability.
Right.
It's another person
Yeah.
that has to be silenced.
Oh, right. If they're working together,
Yeah.
we might need to look out for the health of Olenna Tyrell.
Right. But the problem is that Olenna Tyrell is not a single person. She might well have involved Garland Tyrell or Mace Tyrell.
Oh,
All of the people might have been involved. Marjorie might have been the one who slipped it into the drink, you know?
yeah, and she's also a lot harder to get to than
Exactly.
Dantos the Fool.
Exactly. And just killing her might not be enough because she might have a sealed envelope with her lawyers that say, if I end up dead, make sure the world knows that I was in cahoots with
Ha.
Lord Peter Baelish, you know?
Yes, you'd certainly think she'd take more precautions than Dantos did.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
harsh though the treatment of Sir was, it's hard to argue with Littlefinger's logic, but to do it in front of Sansa, that's the bit where Baelish proves his true colours, I think. He's a monster. And
Yeah.
he wants Sansa to know he's a monster.
If he managed to calculate down to the fact that getting Joff and Tyrion at each other's throats at the wedding feast
Uh-huh.
would make it look more like
Uh-huh.
Tyrion was retaliating against
Uh-huh.
Joff, he certainly did this fully
Knowingly.
calculating. Yes,
Exactly.
knowing exactly what was
Exactly.
happening and how it would affect
Yeah.
Sansa. Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier about Sansa becoming less and less innocent, less head in the clouds, although last chapter she literally did have her head in the clouds.
True.
Um, she becoming very much less the little girl we knew in a Game of Thrones, and this ordeal, plus just last chapter, her hearing the erroneous Battle of the Blackwater song lyrics, where she even spoke up and said, "Cersei didn't do that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly would cause her to lose pretty much any remaining stock she put into songs and stories, I would think.
But Baelish is promising
And
to take her home. We just don't know where home is. So something to look forward to or be worried about, depending on how you view it.
yeah,
And next up,
yeah,
we have Jamie, who maybe will find out about his son's death, perhaps.
we'll see. Might he make it back to King's Landing?
There's four ways that you can help us. You could leave us a review. You could buy merchandise at ghostofharrenhal.threadless.com. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal. Become a sustainer at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level, and you get all the benefits of membership. Lastly, you could make a donation directly to us at our website, ghostofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, keep up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, check out our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.